Very few people have survived to bear witness to a revolution that changed the world, to the entire history of a country that no longer exists, and to a century now at an end, as did Anna Larina. In Russia, it has been said that she was one of her country's greatest women, and certainly one of Soviet history's greatest survivors, and that if Stalin had known she would survive into the 1990s, he would have executed her before any of the other leaders' wives.
I was born in 1914, and I grew up among the professional revolutionaries who, having made their revolution, stood at the head of the new Soviet Union. I sat on Lenin's knee, vacationed at the leadership's dachas, was sternly lectured on revolutionary etiquette by Trotsky, and I sent girlish love notes to Bukharin through an unwitting and yet unmenacing Stalin. Then, of course, there was my father, Yuri Larin, amazingly brilliant and astonishingly courageous in the face of crippling disease. He played a decisive role in the formation of my character and convictions. Now almost forgotten, my father was buried with honors in the Kremlin wall. In addition, since he was a loyal friend of Bukharin, it was as a young girl that I first came to know the man 26 years older than I, to whom I would later be linked by destiny.
Barely 29 years old when the Bolsheviks took power in 1917, Bukharin was the youngest and most popular member of the Communist Party leadership that forged the new Soviet state during the years of revolution and civil war. Lenin called him the favorite of the entire party and the party's biggest theorist. In the 1920s, Bukharin rose to the top level of the Soviet leadership. He was a member of the party's Politburo and Central Committee, editor of its newspaper Pravda, and head of the Communist International. After Lenin's death, Bukharin became, in effect, co-leader of the country with Stalin.
Before the bad times began, I saw Stalin often. At Nikolai's first apartment at the Metropole Hotel. This was in the 1920s when Stalin was cozying up to Nikolai. I once heard Stalin say to Nikolai's father, "What a son you have, such a wonderful son. What did you make him out of? I want to borrow your methods." The feeling I got about Stalin, well, to be honest, I was fairly indifferent to him. I can't say that I hated him at that time. I didn't understand much then. I was too young. Also, there were so many dazzling personalities who regularly visited my father. By comparison, Stalin made no impression. My recollection of Lenin is dim, but I do recall one amusing incident. Once, after Bukharin had just left the office, Lenin and my father began to talk. I didn't fully understand, but I did catch one thing Lenin said. Bukharin is the golden boy of the revolution. I looked at Lenin and said, "That's not true. He isn't made of gold. He's alive."
After being on the extremist wing of the ruling Communist Party during the Civil War of 1918 to 1921, Bukharin evolved into the great advocate of the more liberal, pro-market policies introduced by Lenin in 1921, known as the New Economic Policy, or NEP. Though far from democratic, compared to the decades of bureaucratic tyranny and deprivation that followed, they would be remembered by many citizens as a golden era in Soviet history. Cultural diversity, private enterprise in the cities and the countryside, and market relations were officially encouraged. Convinced that these policies were the true road to Soviet socialism, Bukharin passionately defended them against party extremists after Lenin's death in 1924. Thereafter, NEP would always be associated with his name.